Friends, family, and Dharma brothers and sisters here at Wonderwell, and also joining us from home. And I just want to say in the beginning that all of you at home are with us here too. We feel you out there. We're gathered here today to celebrate the life of Bob Kirby Morrison, who was to us close family, beloved friend, wise teacher, and devoted student. I will always remember my very first meeting with Bob. It was 2007, and we were in a retreat together in upstate New York that some of you were in as well. You will remember. In our first conversation in a quiet room, after asking me if he could take notes, he told me with stunning equanimity and sensitivity that his time on this planet might be drawing to a close. Then he added, but I don't think cancer came into my life to teach me how to die. I think it came into my life to teach me how to live. Bob, right? I can only think, no, I know that he would be so happy to see all of us here today together, family, friends, and Sangha. 14 years after that conversation, 14 years after he told me he didn't know if he had much longer on this planet. To see you doing what he embodied for us, celebrating life, appreciating its gifts, and the abiding in care and community, the abiding in the love. Bob showed us how to live in love and wonder. A bit about how this service will proceed. There will be poetry, there will be song, there will be meditation, there will be sacred chant, there will be reminiscing, There will be room for spontaneity. We have an open mic at one point. And there will be moments for mindful breath and tears. The service has two parts, formal and informal, with a 15-minute break between them. For the formal part, we ask for you to remain seated, if possible. That's about 45 minutes or so. The second part, which is also about 45 minutes after the 15-minute break, you can be more relaxed and stand if you need to, move about if you need to during the open mic, a little more informal. Make yourself comfortable. And during the break, there are refreshments and tea that will be available. After the service concludes, we welcome you to accompany Robin and Bob's family to Wonderwell's Forest Grove, where we will sprinkle some of Bob's ashes. So let's take just a moment to pause for a mindful breath. Well, I invite Lama John Makransky to come forward and guide us in a contemplative practice. And should just say that Lama John was one of Bob's beloved Dharma teachers. Thank you.
I think Bob was one of my most beloved Dharma teachers and still is. So, thank you. Bob and I and others here have often led a kind of meditation adapted from Tibetan Buddhism, but for people from any background. You don't have to be Buddhist. And we sometimes called it benefactor practice, benefactor. And here, what does benefactor mean? That's important because we're about to do it together, if you're game. A benefactor, we have said, and Bob often taught this, a benefactor is someone that you are truly grateful has been in your life or in your world. Someone that you are truly grateful has been in your life or in your world. Someone who you feel has inspired you or blessed you or uplifted you by their presence, by their way of being, by their mentorship, or even through their writing. And in that sense, I think Bob Morrison has been a benefactor to each of us, hasn't he? Hasn't he been that? Ironically, he used to frequently lead this meditation. So in the meditation that I'll lead now, we can each imagine Bob together with all of his benefactors, with all of those who have inspired and blessed him, as present here to us. And you can also imagine all of your own benefactors. Surely Bob is one of those, but others as well, your sources of inspiration and blessing together with Bob and his benefactors in this great field of care. And in the meditation, we imagine Bob and all of these benefactors, not just, this is the important point, not just as a memory or an abstraction, but as present with all their qualities of warmth and unconditional care and compassion and love and wisdom and humor, present here now with all that, not just a memory. That's how Bob and others of us have led this meditation for years, and that's how I'll lead it now. Okay? So just begin by sitting in a relaxed way. Back can be comfortably straight. Your eyes could be open, gazing gently downward. And then we just come down from the thinking mind into the body. Just coming down from the thinking mind to settle into the feeling of the body as a whole. Just relaxing into, settling into the feeling of the body as a whole, and letting the breath settle into its own natural flow. Relaxing into the feeling of the breath, breathing you. And now bring to mind Bob, surrounded by his field of benefactors, and your field of benefactors together with them. And experience them as present here now, not just as a memory or abstraction, but as here now with you, kind of smiling upon you. And you are being seen and held in deep care and compassion and acceptance and warmth beyond judgments. And just relax into this experience of being with Bob, all these benefactors and their qualities, steeping in the loving energy of all this, feeling its tender qualities, and letting those loving qualities just spaciously infuse your whole being. Every part of you loved in its very being. Every part of you loved in its very being. Just accepting it. And whatever thoughts or feelings or reactions may be stimulated by this meditation, just let them all be gently embraced in the spacious, loving acceptance and warmth of this field of care. Let all such thoughts and feelings that arise just find their own place in this loving, compassionate space to settle in their own way, in their own time. Now, if you would like, you can bring to mind someone that you would also like to be included in this loving spaciousness and warmth and acceptance of this field of care. Whoever you'd like to also be included here, let them also be held in these loving qualities while wishing them deeply well, together with Bob and his benefactors. And if you'd like, you can bring to mind more beings that you'd like to include similarly from anywhere in your life or world, and let them also be included in the same loving qualities. I'm just wishing them deeply well. And finally, you can let everyone around you and in your world, if you'd like, everyone be naturally included in this field of loving energy and acceptance and warmth. Every being, human and non-human, and just wishing them deeply well. Gong. That's the gong. So Bob did that practice a lot. One thing he loved to, one saying he loved to repeat came from one of his root teachers, Nosho Ken Rinpoche. The blessings are always pouring forth. In my view, Bob spent his life reunifying with the source of those blessings. And now he's helping them pour forth without end. So thank you all.
Lama Liz Monson, another teacher of Bob's.
Hi, everybody. It's really a bittersweet delight and an honor to be here today. And I think I really have to say that I don't think of myself as one of Bob's teachers. I think of Bob as one of my teachers who really taught me the beauty of holding everyone in love and kindness and equanimity. I never, ever saw a crossword, heard a crossword, or saw any unpleasant expression pass over Bob's face. Just so much heart, kindness, and gentleness and love. Just so much. And I learned so much from that, being around him and with him. And in the month before he died, when he was in the rehab center, and I was, for some reason, I don't know quite why, but we ended up having a series of phone conversations that were about an hour apiece. And in those conversations, there was something very raw, very real, and very clear that kind of came through. And we talked about death, and we talked about, how Bob felt about his death. And he was, he told me, so one of the things I remember he shared, he said, everything is shining. Everything is shining. It was like everything was sort of lit. And he was feeling that continuity of that clarity and that beauty and the blessings, as Lama John just described, that were always present. And he shared with me that he was not afraid and that he was really ready. And those conversations have really made a strong, strong impact in my heart and led me to feel like, we can do this. We can do this. We can move through our lives with love and equanimity and care and joy and continue on to what's next. So during that time, I sent this poem to Bob. And this poem is, it's actually a compilation of verses out of a Dharma text that one of Thich Nhat Hanh's nuns compiled. And it's just, Bob really loved it, and I wanted to share it with all of you. I think some of you have probably read it, but I just wanted to, I believe he's here and he's listening. So, this body is not me. I am not caught in this body. I am life without boundaries. I have never been born, and I shall never die. Look at the ocean and the sky filled with stars, manifestations of my wondrous true mind. Since before time, I have been free. Birth and death are only doors through which we pass, sacred thresholds on our journey. Birth and death are just a game of hide and seek. So laugh with me, hold my hand. Let us say goodbye. Say goodbye to meet again soon. We meet today, we will meet again tomorrow. We will meet at the source of every moment. We meet each other in all forms of life. Thank you, everyone. And such an honor to be here with all of you, Bob's family and friends and students and colleagues, and what a wonderful gathering.
Inviting up to the mic Yogi Brendan Kennedy, another teacher, or maybe I should say student of Bob's.
So when I first met Bob, what really struck me, what I really noticed, was he had several teachers. He was totally into each teacher, which is not a common quality for most students. And I thought that was really unusual these days. It is said, perfect student makes a perfect teacher. When two people share their true nature intimately, they become one. They will never be separate. So I have a question for all of you. What would Bob say, or how would he react? And I asked this question. Would Bob like you to just remember all the experiences that you had with him? Would he love for you to remember the essence of Bob? The experiences with him will pass. But his essence will always remain. What do you think he would prefer? For you to remember the experiences that you had with him, or to start to really realize the essence of Bob, which is no different than your own essence?
Joel. And Joel Baehr, dear friend of Bob's. Yeah, you can take that.
I remember meeting Bob in Spark Street Zen Center, or whatever that was, what it was called. He was a very central player in those years with Surya. a special kind of character who was a very good student and was looked up to by almost everybody all the time. And I was a little jealous of him that he had such standing and such status. Hey, why are you laughing? What is this? That was Bob, and one of the greatest pleasures that I had in those years was becoming Bob's friend. And I remember going to the we had a poker group, a Buddhist poker group. Where we experimented with having a pot with nothing in it and so on. And Bob was just always the center of life that was going on there. Didn't need anything else. We didn't need booze. We didn't need cookies, although we did have some booze and had some cookies. But it was really, in a sense, what we had was Bob, and we were all riding on him, and it was delightful. Everyone was delighted. That was the nature of Bob. He had large heart, he had large arms, he would embrace the group, the people, and the situation, the tradition that he was paying attention to. Very respectful and very open to laugh and to cry. One of his favorite passages is from this volume, Natural Great Perfection by Lama Surya and Noshal Khenpo. It really is a remarkable book, especially this particular chapter. I will, instead of reading it all, I'll just tell you the basics. If you look for the real guru, the real teacher, where do you look and what do you find? You find an old man with a beard. Do you find what traditions and rituals and so on and so forth, of course. But then you listen to something from this book and it says the true guru, the true teacher, the real teacher, the inner teacher, the Yeshe Lama, is the entire phenomenal universe in all of its detail. The true teacher is the entire phenomenal universe in all of its detail. Now that's a heart stopper. So wow, wait a minute. There isn't any way to be separated from such a guru, such a teacher. Always there. If you really recognized your ultimate inseparability from the Buddha, inseparability from the teacher in every situation and every moment, then that is the absolute principle of Dzogpa Chenpo. Not just knowing that the words mean great perfection. Now, Bob was a practitioner of Dzogchen, and he was a master. So when Bob was on a hike, or when Bob was petting his cats, or just laughing with friends, or whatever he was doing, that Bob was there in the presence of the teacher, the absolute being. We required rejecting nothing, bringing all in, being all together. Think of him as a Sangha leader who brought everybody in. So Bob, in my memory, will always be just a beautiful human being, and one who embodies the teachings and the practices of Dzogchen. Great delight. Great riches. So when he's on a hike, or when you were on a hike, and whatever it is you were experiencing, whatever it is that innermost Yeshe Lama teacher. Right there. Nothing to do for it. You can't get it by chasing it. You can't get rid of it by ignoring it. What a blessing. It's a blessing to have someone in your life who practices like that, and who understands like that, and who loves like that, who forgives like that. And that's Bob, and that's you. Thank you.
Next we have Deborah Jai Levy, Bob's close friend who was with him when he passed, to lead us in a sacred chant of Tara.
I hope you'll all help me sing. Feeling shaky. Right after Bob died, I went upstairs to his altar and just sat down. I'd never sat in front of it before. It was up near the bedroom. And I rang his singing bowl. And I was very struck by its quality, which you'll hear in a moment. Gentle. Gentle. Soft. A quality of rippling out endlessly. Beauty. So before we begin with Tara's chant, I'd like you to hear the essence of Bob. As many of you know, Bob was deeply connected with Tara. This is Tara, who is an embodiment of deep compassion and love. And she steps into the world with her right foot to bring aid to beings and healing. And he had a very intimate and special relationship with her. He embodied her. And she has a mantra, which our teacher used to say was like having her phone number. So we're going to call her up. And I've put the words here. Some of you know this chant. Om Tare, Tutare, Ture, Soha. 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 Om Tare, Tutare, Soha.
Camille Hykes is going to read from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Dear friend of Bob's.
Each day, beginning October 12th, the day of our beloved Sangha brother Bob's passing, the natural Dharma community gathered round together on Bob's behalf, using a text prepared and translated by Lama Willa, drawn from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This Bardo Tadel practice encouraged Bob to recognize the arisings in the Bardo, or after-death state, as projections of his consciousness, just as we can recognize images in a dream. When these are recognized, the clear light of death can again be encountered directly, and awakening dawns. To help with this recognition, so many in this community gathered for 49 days. We recited, chanted, and meditated together, inviting the mental presence of Bob into the space with us. We visualized, simply sensed, his benefactors as well as our own, and including green Tara around him, around each one of us, and all guiding and protecting him. Here are two verses drawn from this precious text that he held out to us, inviting us to look into. If, upon looking outward toward the external expanse of the sky, there are no projections emanated by the mind, and if, on looking inward at one's own mind, there is no projectionist who projects thoughts by thinking them, then one's own mind, completely free from conceptual projections, will become luminously clear. This intrinsic awareness, union of inner radiance and emptiness, is the Buddha body of reality, appearing like the illumining effect of a sunrise in a clear and cloudless sky, is clearly knowable despite its lack of specific shape or form. There is a great distinction between those who understand and those who misunderstand this point. This naturally originating inner radiance, uncreated from the very beginning, is the parentless child of awareness. How amazing! It is the naturally originating, pristine cognizance, uncreated by anyone. How amazing! This radiant awareness has never been born and will never die. How amazing! Though manifestly radiant, it lacks an extraneous perceiver. How amazing! Though it has roamed throughout cyclic existence, it does not degenerate. How amazing! Though it has seen Buddhahood itself, it does not improve. How amazing! Though it is present in everyone, it remains unrecognized. How amazing! Still, one hopes for some attainment other than this. How amazing! Though it is present within oneself, one continues to seek it. One continues to seek it elsewhere. How amazing!
All right. So it looks like we're back online and back in room. I was reminded by Barbara to let everyone know that the cook asked what Bob's favorite foods were, and one of the responses that he got was truffles. So those truffles out there were made in Bob's memory. So please consume them with that in mind. And, Bob knew what was important in life. And one of those things was food. He always brought the best food on our camping trips, hiking trips, much of which was baked by Robin. Speaking of whom, Robin, would you like to come up and share a few thoughts with memories? Thank you.
Thank you, Lama Willa. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Wonderwell. Thank you, everyone throughout the world who is with us here. I wanted to share with you a birthday card that Bob gave me that was truly a work of art. It is, as you can see, 4 pages with an insert, which is entitled The 21 Praises to Robin. And I don't have time to read all 21 praises, but I'll read about 10 of them for you. The birthday card is, it contains copies of tarot cards, and he was a great tarot card reader in his younger days. And so he has inscribed this "Happy Birthday, Robin," for all your forms, and there's a copy of the 3 of Cups, the dancing girls, we call that. And then, so this was written in 2008. So he has 08 equals infinity. That was one of his things. And he has copies of the tarot cards that are the High Priestess, the World, the Strength, the Star, the Empress, Queen of Swords, 9 of Pentacles, Queen of Wands with the cat, Queen of Pentacles, Queen of Cups, and may your cup floweth over always with the Ace of Cups. And it says, I love you forever. It's very romantic. Okay, I'll start with reading a few of these praises. Om, I pay homage to Arya, Robin. Homage to Robin, the magnificent, who appeared in the world as if to fulfill and exceed the wildest dreams of her most admiring devotee, who is eternally prostrate with awe and appreciation. It's a bit over the top, That's Bob. Homage to Robin the beautiful, whose slender white foot inspires a lifetime of troth, and whose delicate white hands are so graceful that any other woman's hands are man hands by comparison. He actually proposed to me when he saw my foot once. Homage to Robin, swift and courageous, the wrathful and steadfast life savioress, who with a stamp of her foot sends doctors to surgery. Chop, chop. I did have an interaction with one of his doctors once. Homage to Robin, the all-powerful, who with a touch of her BlackBerry, this is 2008, recruits stars for every niche and commands minions far and wide. I had like 3 reporter ease. Homage to Robin, the all-knowing queen of information retrieval, who delivers what everyone needs at lightning speed, like an archer who never misses the mark. Homage to Robin, the slasher, who cuts like a scalpel, excess verbiage from even the most eloquent blatherer, and who demands deep discounts from the wiliest vendors. Homage to Robin, the green Tara form, lover and protector of animals and forests, canyons and waterfalls and mountains, all of which are adornments to her own natural beauty. Homage to Robin, the home transforming genie, still batting 1,000 with every purchase and every renovation, decoration, painting, and furnishing with the precision of a beaver building a lodge. Well, beaver's my power animal. Homage to Robin, the peerless cat magnet, who draws into her loving fold the perfect jewels of the feline world, each more magnificent than the last. Homage to Robin, the ideal friend, perfect counselor, confidant, and companion, in any place, in any situation, on any journey, throughout all possible universes. These are the 21 praises to Robin. May they be proclaimed throughout time and space. I miss you, baby. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robin. Bob's devotion to Robin was legendary in our community. And Jane and Ralph, please come up and share.
Hey everybody, I'm Ralph. This is my sister Jane. Bob was a caring and inspiring uncle to us, to our sister Liz, and to our cousins Sarah and John. And today we'd like to share a few memories of our time with our Uncle Bob.
In 2020, I was camping in Grand Teton National Park. The trip was full of many surreal animal sightings, and I was already looking forward to telling Uncle Bob about the bushy-tailed, huge orange fox that came by our campsite every night. On our last day, we went paddleboarding at a spot called String Lake, easily one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. We were taking a break and lying on our paddleboards when I looked up to see a canoe coming around the corner. I was positive it was Uncle Bob. After staring dumbstruck at the canoer for an awkwardly long amount of time, I accepted that if it actually was Uncle Bob, he probably would have said hi by now. I emailed Bob and Robin after the trip to tell them about the encounter, including a picture of Bob's lookalike canoeing. Bob always had great responses to stories, so I'd like to share a portion of his reply. That photo of the Bob-like guy in the canoe, that's really wild. He's even got the hat. I would have thought it was me too. Come to think of it, when I was living in Seattle in the 1970s and driving a cab, a few times fares who got in my cab said they thought that they'd seen someone who looked just like me, but I never met him, if he even existed. The fares I got on the night shift were often in dubious mental states. Who knows, maybe my doppelganger continued to live a parallel life, each of us unaware of the other, until that fateful sighting on String Lake. As in string theory? Which, if I understand it, proposes that there are multiple alternative universes. Maybe that guy glanced over when you weren't watching and thought, that young woman looks just like my niece. We loved sharing stories with Bob because he was always truly listened to us, openly and without judgment. He spoke with us as peers, even when we were young. Whether I couldn't shut up about the most recent dog I had met, or Liz thought she was having prophetic dreams, or Ralph wanted to describe the entire plot of his newly conceptualized sci-fi novel, Bob always fully and enthusiastically engaged in any conversation with us. He sincerely took us seriously.
And believe me, when he was playing Scrabble with an adorable 7-year-old, Bob would take that 7-year-old very seriously and do his very best to win, which he would occasionally.
Bob's storytelling was a wonderful way for us to get to know our family's history. When Liz was in middle school, Bob joined our father, Jim, and Grandma Joan to take Liz to her first concert, Bob Dylan and Phil Lesh of the Grateful Dead. Uncle Bob, in his uncensored, non-judgmental fashion, filled the evening with wild stories of his and our dad's youth. Was my dad a hippie? Liz asked him, astounded and proud. All of this was news to her, and probably a lot of it was news to Grandma Joan as well. Though, to be fair, she was the one who named one of her sons Jim Morrison.
Going back to Scrabble for a minute, I remember the last game that Bob and I ever played one-on-one. This was in Cape Cod in 2017. It was an absolute whirlwind of a game. I think it wound up being my and Bob's highest combined score ever. And I ended up posting a photo of this finished Scrabble board to Facebook, and Bob commented on it. There's a novel or secret message in those words. And then he proceeded to produce a message from the words on the board that we played together. Ah, much ado about a gold yeti. Nay, unjam my keen memory now. Hex me as an idiot for having caved into opening your way to that last 7-letter triple word score. R. This was an amazing talent that Bob had, his ability to spot connections between things and to weave them together into a compelling story. Where what many people might have dismissed as scattered random things, Bob found such beautiful synchronicity. We're really lucky that he shared that gift with us and taught us that beautiful way of looking at the universe. Uncle Bob has been a huge part of our lives, from when he bore witness to us swimming to the Cape Cod raft without floaties for the first time, to when he officiated our sister's canoe-based wedding ceremony. We will miss him very deeply, and we will always hold him and his stories in our hearts.
And Susie, Bob's sister.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and all you people on Zoom also. I think that Bob would agree that the best thing he ever did was marry Robin. As you'll hear, I do like to take a little credit for it, but first we have to reach far back in time to the early 1950s. Our great Uncle Tom won the daily double at the Agua Caliente racetrack in Tijuana. This all-important event occurred in February 1953, just about the time Bob was conceived. Just one of the many synchronicities in his story. As Bob writes, as if from the very beginning of my life, the puzzle of destiny, or whatever, was already piecing Robin and me together. Eventually, my mom inherited the house Uncle Tom bought with his daily double winnings. After selling that house and settling his debts, Mom invited Bob, Jim, his wife Ruth, and me to Greece. Meanwhile, I was teaching at a foreign language school in Cambridge, Massachusetts. My one perk was a free class. To prepare for our trip, I took modern Greek. In the class was a young woman named Janet I thought would be great for Bob to meet. I wanted to play matchmaker. I'll pause in that story to share a couple of events involving Bob in Greece. These are from my mom's journal she kept that August of 1983. And might I add, in the discussion of benefactors, my mother is a benefactor for our whole family. The first passage from her journal concerned the flight over to Athens. Bobby was across the aisle with Susie. He reported that Susie managed to ooze over his seat during the night. He was squashed in one corner by morning. They later confessed that they didn't know the difference between the Parthenon and the Acropolis. A week later, after spending the afternoon in Mycenae, we stopped at a fountain for Hera outside Nauplia, where the goddess was supposed to renew her virginity yearly. Susie and Ruth took drinks there. A local Greek man came up with 5 plastic bottles, which he filled with the magic water, whereupon Bob made one of his classic comments. He must have a lot of daughters. That fall of 1984, after the Greek trip, Bob came to visit me. I called Janet, eager to have her meet him, in hopes of fixing them up. Janet said she was sorry, her South American boyfriend was visiting. But she added, I'm throwing a party, and my twin sister will be there. Her twin sister was none other than Robin. At the party, it was clear Bob was totally smitten with her. I think there's a photo somewhere of that very night. As Bob puts it, as I would later tell our grandpa, even if I never win at the races again, I'm already way ahead. What more could I possibly win than what I've been given? He meant, of course, his beloved Robin. Last June, the cancer had spread to his lungs. Bob wrote in one of those piercingly beautiful emails many of us here came to simultaneously dread and anticipate. Naturally, Robin and I are heartbroken. I love her dearly and this life we have found here in Western Massachusetts, a paradise I hope to share for many years to come with her. She is such a steadfast and adorable companion. It pains me that she must traverse this path again with me. To think of leaving her and this world brings unspeakable grief, which I know is unavoidable with love. The grief of Bob's loss only shows how much we all love and miss him. Robin gave his life such meaning, consolation, and joy. We Morrisons are blessed to have her in our family as we mourn with her. I'll close with a short passage from one of our grandfather's letters. Werner, also a family benefactor, was a Swedish immigrant to Chicago with a realistic, even grim view of the world. He also introduced Bob to horse racing at Arlington Park. There's a theme in this, isn't there? In June 1979, Bob, or Bobby, as he was known in the family, visited Grandpa before continuing back to Seattle. Grandpa writes my mother Joan the following. I was going through letters recently and I came across this letter from my grandfather. In the evening, we had supper at my place. Later, Bobby agreed to go across the street to the Woodlawn Tap for a couple of prescribed beers. It was nice to see Bobby, and I felt sad to see him leave. I hope to see him again. So long, Bobby. I can only echo what my grandfather wrote. I wish I could see my brother again. So long, Bobby.
Thank you, Susie and Jim, Bob's brother.
So these recollections are not in chronological order. That's fine. We'll go with that. I am Bob's younger brother, Jim, and I was going to talk a little bit about growing up with Bob. So after the horse race, after our uncles. You know. You'll see that's not the only thing. So I was going to talk a little bit about what we did when we were growing up, things I learned from Bob. We've heard a lot about learning from Bob. And then one of our family gathering places that we've already heard about several times. So I'll avoid overlap. In 1963, I was 7 and Bob was 9, and we moved to a house on Springbrook Road in Morristown. And there were woods all behind our house. Acres and acres. So we played Army. We used to watch a show with my father called Combat about American troops in France during World War II. And we'd get a couple of neighborhood kids and we'd go out there and play. And one of us was Sarge and one was Little John and someone would be a Nazi and things like that. We played a lot of games. We've heard about games. We played Monopoly. We played Risk. We played Life. You know, had the spinny thing in the middle. Lots of card games. Bob knew a lot of variations of 7-card stud and 5-card draw. We played a lot of sports. Out in our driveway, we'd play 1-on-1 basketball. We could find people 2-on-2. Out in the side yard, which went uphill, if we could get a couple of people, we'd play football. And the offense always had to go up because, you know, it was just too easy going down. And also you'd end up catching a touchdown pass in the street and the car would come by. So you always had to go up. We played ping pong in the basement. We played hours of pool in what was known as the TV room. Anyway, we did a lot of things together. We've heard about music. We've listened to music. During Bob's high school years, he had the complete works, as I viewed it, of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, lots of different artists, Jimi Hendrix, and the Grateful Dead. And in the summer of 1973, he took Ruth and me to our first Grateful Dead concert. I'm almost positive Dave Polow was there. It was Roosevelt Stadium in Jersey City. The Grateful Dead were playing 4 nights. He took us the first night and he went the other 3 nights as well. Maybe Dave was there too, I'm not sure. He went to Oberlin for 2 years. And I don't know if he was leading or I was following or a little of both, but I went to Oberlin. By the time I got there, he was gone. He had headed out west. And then when Ruth and I graduated from college, he was out in Seattle. So we moved out to Seattle. That's how it worked out. So anyway, lots of memories of things we've done. I wanted to talk a little bit about Cape Cod, which you've heard about. In 1959, when we were younger, we went there for the first time, and Bob and I did all kinds of things together, you know, digging rivers and castles in the sand. We played in the water. We tried to catch crabs. We played shuffleboard. We threw horseshoes. We'd get the entire family, 5 of us, in an 18-foot green Grumman canoe, and Bob would be up front, and my father would be in the stern, and we'd go downriver back to our place. My father would take us to see the Red Sox. We'd get on a bus and go up to Boston, and these were the days, long gone, where we could walk up to the ticket office half an hour before the game and get box seats right behind the first base line. I have a feeling it's a little harder to get tickets these days. We saw Carlo Yastrzemski play. A big guy named Dick Radix was one of these early relievers and stuff. Anyway, Robin's another Red Sox fan. I think there's a Grateful Dead. Yeah, there it is. There it is. It's in the audience. When we became teenagers, one of the things I definitely learned from Bob was how to hitchhike. He didn't have a license yet, and, you know, but we were up at Cape Cod, and it felt to me like we could do anything. We could go anywhere. We had total freedom. What did we do? We would hitchhike into Dennisport. We'd go to Friendly's. We'd play miniature golf. We'd go past the trampoline place that always was missing a few things where maybe accidents had happened, you know, what do you call it, the springs. And we'd do go-karts and things like that, and then we'd hitchhike back to our place. In any case, we spent many summers at Cape Cod. There was a period of about 20 years where we didn't go much. And then in the 1990s, when Ruth and I had kids, we started going back, and my parents would rent a series of cottages, and Susie and her family would be there, and Bob and Robin would come down to visit us, and we've heard about Scrabble. One of my memories of Bob and Robin coming to the Cape is both Ralph and Elizabeth had July birthdays. So it was not a good day for Jane, but we got to celebrate. She wasn't born in the summer, but we got to celebrate sometimes twice. Like if Bob and Robin came down 2 days after the birthday, we'd have a second birthday party. And Jane would watch. I think that's how that happened. One memory I and many people in my family have of Bob is we would go whale watching out of Provincetown on the Dolphin Fleet. And Bob had this thing. And Robin would meet him, but he would immediately go up to the bowsprit of the boat, and you know, it's over the water. He would be there the entire trip. It would be 45 minutes out to Stellwagen Bank, and an hour and a half watching whales, and then the way back in. And he would ride the boat. And again, that's where you get the biggest spring, I guess. And his nieces and nephews and Robin and me, we would all go up there and spend some time with Bob. And it was sort of magical because as long as you stayed up there, you never got seasick. And then people would say, oh, I got to do something. And then they get sick. But if you stayed with Bob, Xenia knows this, right? You stay with Bob, you're all right. You're invulnerable. There was one time where there was a horrible storm, and coming back, the boat was just doing this. And they actually called out on the microphone, everyone has to get back. And Bob just wrote it out. I mean, it was sort of like, they're not talking to me. So he just... Anyway, Cape Cod was one of those places we kept going, and it was a place where we could catch up with family, and again, Scrabble and more, even more than Scrabble, if you can imagine it. All of these things are kind of social, things Bob did with me and the rest of us. I'd like to mention one thing he did on his own, also at Cape Cod. Over the last 25 years, every time we go up to Cape Cod, one evening, ideally, if there was a full moon, about 11 o'clock at night, Bob would take one of the canoes, and he would paddle across Fallon's Pond, and he would go down a little creek and under a river, under a bridge, and he'd end up at another pond, Mill Pond, and he'd go to the far end of Mill Pond, and he'd tie up the canoe. He'd get there about midnight, and I noticed, a lot of pictures of Bob. He's up on a peak right up in New Hampshire or Mount Kailash in Tibet or someplace like that. This was sea level, pretty much sea level. And he spent the night in the belly of the canoe. He would lie there, he would meditate, he would watch the light of the moon, play off the waters of Mill Pond. He might doze a little, but he wanted to be there before sunrise when the ospreys started getting active, stirring, and there was an osprey nest at the far end, and he wasn't right under it. He gave them their space, but he wanted to be close by, and the ospreys would start stirring, and there were always 2 or 3 adults and a couple of younger ospreys, and he would be there to greet them in the morning, and the sun would rise, and he would paddle back and so on. So I don't think it's going to happen this year, but we're hoping maybe next year we might be able to paddle, maybe not at midnight. During the day, we're going to head out to Mill Pond. Both my parents' ashes are spread there, and there may be a similar ceremony in honor of Bob. But we want to go see the ospreys that he was very familiar with.
Thank you so much, Jim. And I just want to check for a moment here with Andrea, whether or not we can actually go over 15 minutes on the Zoom. We can. Yes, very good. And if anyone, I know there's a couple of people that may need to leave before we're done, which is fine, just so you're aware if you need to. So now we're going to move into the spontaneous part of our time together with an open mic. So I'd love to invite people up to share, anyone who feels inspired, remembrances of Bob's life. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve. I met Bob in 2007, I think, for the first time. And it was, I think, after a Monday night meditation in Cambridge in that era. And right away, I felt so welcomed by this community. A lot of the people I'm looking at in this room played a huge role in that. And I just want you all here to know that that continues to be a valuable experience to me. And I cherish those memories to this day. Feeling so welcomed in. I was just a punk kid who did mushrooms in college and knew there was more to the story. And I wanted to know what that story was. And so, the face of that welcoming community for me was Bob. I've heard a lot of people come up here and say how non-judgmental he was and how open-hearted he was, and that was my very first memory of him, and that is my very last memory of him too. It was just so special over the years. I went out west for almost a decade, and we stayed in touch, and we got together once a year out in Northern California. We'd go to Harbin Hot Springs, and some of my favorite memories was walking around through the woods or hiking Mount Harbin and spending just simple, quiet time with him in silence. He was also legendary for his ability to stay up late and have deep conversations about the nature of reality, which we did quite a bit. And in some ways, I feel like that conversation continues to this moment right now. And when we'd do hikes, whether in the White Mountains or whether out in California, Bob would do something he called touching into the timeless, where he'd see a tree that he just couldn't walk by it, and he'd stand in front of it and drop into presence with it. And in the way that he described it, touching into the timeless, is a thing where if you drop into perfect presence with it, it's as if you were there forever. And that really stuck with me. And I carry that on in my day-to-day when I can remember to do that. It feels like we weren't just here for this moment. This is something that's been happening at an ancient level forever. Never forget that. Bob was there during a rather particularly tough breakup that I had. It was a period of tremendous uncertainty, and he made himself available to pick up the phone and spend hours talking to me and supporting me and writing inspirational emails. And he helped me transform a rather dark period of my life into a time of growth and curiosity. And I feel indebted to him. And I feel like to this day, I can never really pay that back. The open-heartedness that he offered to me is really quite special. The gift of his friendship. We bonded over our love for mountains, nature, counterculture literature, the Grateful Dead, the Dharma. And knowing him has had a huge effect on my life and how I try to show up for the people that I love, how I try to show up just for myself. And I can't begin to articulate that, but I have a pretty good idea that everyone here knows what that might be like, because you've maybe got a taste of that from knowing him as well. I just want to share this one last memory. During Bob's last days, I was there with he and Robin and some wonderful people in this community, and I was shocked in a profound way to see him moving towards the great mystery with a sense of humor and with an open heart and with overflowing gratitude. It was absolutely profound to witness. And I'm still processing that and seeing the possibility, like, we can roll with this life. We can access that joy and gratitude and humor even when we don't know what's next. And it was quite an honor and quite transformational to get to bear witness in that moment. And during those last days, I got to witness some of the care and love that Bob had for Robin. And I was just kind of a fly on the wall at one moment. And I just remember, this was maybe a day or two before he was no longer able to speak. And I just remember him looking at Robin and saying, "I'm so glad I found you. I'm so glad I found you." And I'm glad he found you. I'm glad we found Bob. Thank you, everyone. Oh, my name is Steve. Sorry if I didn't say my name. Steve Bagley, friend of Bob.
Thank you very much, Wonderwell, for this wonderful opportunity to talk about our friend and family member, Bob. I'm going to let you in on a financial secret that Bob and I had, and it involves the Grateful Dead and the racetrack. What we discovered in the early days, there's something called an exacta. And for an exacta, you have to pick the first two horses in a race. And what we noticed is number 7, number 4 came in an inordinate amount of times. And so number 7, that's the letter G, 7th letter in the alphabet, and the 4th letter in the alphabet is D, the GD exacta. And so it was unbelievable. Of course, it didn't come in all the time, because I think if we actually made money at the racetrack, we wouldn't have worked or done anything else, and we didn't. We did countless trips to the racetracks. And our senior year in high school, 71, 72, gambling isn't like it is now where it's everywhere. So in those days, the only racetrack that was open in the East Coast was Delaware Park. We would actually drive down there on Sundays, sometimes having not enough money to barely make it back for gas and tolls. But these words that have been expressed about Bob today, who really, really was a unique individual. And if I was going to ask for a few words to describe him, the first one is kind. It's already been mentioned, non-judgmental. But also, he was fun and funny. Those are two different things. And most of all, kind and smart. So I wrote together in a very short period of time a little poem, and I would write poems on occasion. I once spoke at a judge's retirement party once. I should have said my name. My name's Dave Polow. I'm from Morrisville, or actually Morristown, Vermont. I was born in Morristown, New Jersey, which is where I grew up with Bob. But, oh, and I made a note. I was reading some letters that, it's been talked about before. Bob was a cabbie driver, which he loved in Seattle for about 6 years. But then he put his writing skills together, and he was always, as you all know from reading his emails, I mean, unbelievable. I don't know if anybody's hindered a slow decline in their health like he has. Unbelievable. So he worked at a place called Westmar, Western Marine Electronics Company. I don't know if anybody's heard about it. He sent me some of the materials from it, and he was their promotional copyright guy. And he was so proud of having this real job. It may have been his first W-2 for all I know. That's right. So anyway, I wrote this poem. Here's a poem for our friend Bob. He was a guy who was never a snob. I like to think of the great times we had, and then I'm not quite as sad. We had a lot of fun back in the day, driving around Morristown in my Chevrolet. Every night was Saturday, or so it seemed, driving to Dunkin' Donuts. That was our theme. The racetrack was where we loved to go, to Monmouth Park to make some dough. How we loved the Grateful Dead. In Jersey City, Jerry really shred. I'm sure you know this, but Bob was smart. His grades in high school were off the charts. I think most of all, Bob was kind in addition to his brilliant mind. Thank you, Bob, for all you gave me. For all of us, you were a VIP. Thank you, Bob. We love you forever.
I'll just be very brief. I met Bob in about 1984, quite a while ago. And I think Robin and he were getting together at that time. It was sort of the beginning of things. And the gambling thing, he thought he'd won a horse race, so he invited all these people over for lobster, I think it was. And the friend that was supposed to take the bet in couldn't make it at the last minute. And Bob thought he'd won something like $200 and had this big feast, and oh well, it was fun. I liked the lobster, it was good. So I just want to tell one story about another nice thing, just to say, Bob and I talked about spirituality a lot, and he tried many things and was very open to different things. And it was so nice to see when he blossomed into Buddhism, where he found his home, and to blossom into this place when we talk about it. And that was just such a wonderful awakening and blossoming for him. So this is a story about the family, your family. I was visiting Bob's mom and dad. We were going to go to something in Newark. And so I met, Dr. Morrison and Mrs. Morrison. And I realized that actually I had bought a secondhand copy of one of Dr. Morrison's books, which was this textbook for organic chemistry. So during college, I owned that book. I thought I was going to take organic chemistry, and I dropped it and didn't move forward with it. It was daunting. It was big. So here's this Dr. Morrison, and we're having dinner. Susie was there. And, at some point, Dr. Morrison reared up and said, if I was the ruler of the world and the ruler of, if I was the dictator, I would ban television. He said this was great, effect. And there was silence for a moment. Okay. And then the talk went on, and Bob was a conversationalist. I don't know if you ever noticed that, but he once said, what was it? I should have a sign warning that strongly held beliefs can change within seconds, and opinions can change within seconds. So then the talk and the conversation came around to somehow the songs of old TV shows from the 60s, 50s, 60s, and who could remember the songs? And there was one, Paladin something, I forget which, one of the cowboy shows. And, right. And we got and I was a kid who grew up overseas. That's my excuse for not remembering these things. So we got about half of a verse or a full verse, and we were kind of stuck. And suddenly, we're all talking. Suddenly, at one end of the table, a voice comes in and sings the whole song, felt like 4 verses. I think it was 3 verses, every word correct. And we look over Dr. Morrison. And so it turns out then we talked about cowboy shows and how he watched it with the boys, Jim and Bob. And that, they'd changed one of the shows an hour later. And so they had to write a letter together to Mrs. Morrison to ask her if they could go to bed a little later to watch this show. This was just for the boys, And so then we were, so this is the family and Bob's origin. And I just so then dessert was coming, and it came, in, and we were about to eat it. And his father looked at Bob and said, "Bobby, is it something? What's up? What's up?" And Bob said, "Well, it's nothing." "No, what is it? What is it?" "Well," he said, "The Simpsons started 10 minutes ago." And, but no, let's eat, but let's just have dessert. And his father said, "What do you mean?" And we all left the table, went into the next room, big room, empty, with just a huge TV in it. And and we watched The Simpsons, and his father said, "Well, I was in England and I got a full set of the show The Prisoner." I don't know if you remember that. It's an old show, The Prisoner. And I had it transferred into the American system so we can watch it. We spent the rest of the night watching TV, watching the Prisoner shows. I thought it was great. So I told it, Bob insisted that I put it into I think it was their 50th wedding anniversary book. So I wrote it up, and just as a little coda on that, I saw Dr. Morrison a couple of years later, and I said, he came up to me and said, "You wrote that story, and it was kind of like watching a video of the event." But he says, "But I have an excuse, for that. I've read every book that's worth reading." So, I think that somehow captures some origin of Bob. That trip to Greece. I think there were some bad cold days with rain all day long. And your mother would say in Latin, I don't remember how Latin is, but "We will look back on this and laugh." And people were tired of her saying that after a little while. And to say to Ralph, what I understood from him, he loved the family, and he always talked about nieces, nephews, sisters, brother. And Ralph knew everything there was to know about the Simpsons. You could ask him about which episode, and so his love for all of that just shone, and that's what you can all see. But it was so personal and it was so deep at the same time. So it was an honor and a privilege to know him. Thank you. John Schlorholtz for the
We have we'll take a couple more sharings.
I just wanted to take off my mask. I don't have anything to say.
Wait, say your name.
Oh, yes. My name is Leo Shapiro. Actually, I did want to say a couple of words. One, John, you sort of stole my thunder about the organic chemistry book. I feel connected to the family also through your dad's book, because when I was at City College of New York thinking about being pre-med, you really had to do well in organic chemistry to get into medical school. So I read the book, which I loved, and I probably aced the course, and I got into medical school. So I thank the family, Dr. Morrison, for helping me be where I am today. So that's my tribute to the family. To Bob, I have a lot of things to say, but I'll just say one thing that I remember a lot. He and I used to drive down to Garrison together. I'd be driving the car to give him a lift for a retreat. And I'm sort of like, let's get there. So I would say, Bob, we're going to go this way. It's like, he looked at me as if I'm crazy. You're going to like drive through Hartford to get to wherever we're going to Garrison. It's like, the thing to do is like, we're going to go this way so we can take the Taconic, stop at places, take a look at nature. Like, what's the rush? So I still sort of aspire to take the path less traveled, at least the path that I would usually take. And just to let you know how much I sort of looked up to Bob and tried to emulate him, not at that point sort of just being myself. In this very room, I was taking a course, Lama John was teaching. So, and Bob told me when he can't sleep at night, sometimes he'd come down to the meditation hall. It's like, well, if Bob did it, I'll try it. So, and if you're having a retreat for, 5 days or 7 days, you know where everybody sits. So I think like, when I go, so it's 4 o'clock in the morning or something, I'm not sleeping. It's like, I'm going to do what Bob did. So I came down to the meditation hall. It's like, I'm going to sit in Bob's seat, see what he is experiencing. Not too much happened. I'll sit in the Lama's seat and see what happened there. Again, I wasn't Bob and I'm not the Lama. Then I sat in my own seat and I had a very important experience where like, I realized like my benefactors had my back. So that was, I still thank Bob for the recommendation to come down to the hall. And there's a lot of other stories, but we'll stop now. Thank you all. Thanks, Bob.
Well, I'd like to tell a story about the magic of Bob. For many years, he would be telling us, Robin already knew about this place, and our friend Camille, about a place in Western Massachusetts in the Berkshires called Bash-Bish Falls. And for years, we said, we gotta go. And finally, we made it happen. We went to Bash-Bish Falls. And Bob's whole mission was to go, many of you know, he always found these secret places. Yes, secret places. He said, we got to go to the secret falls. There's the falls where we're going to go to the secret falls. So he gathers us with Camille and Robin and I, and he gathers the four of us. He says, here's what we're going to do. We're going to, just go across there and we'll be able to get to it. Nobody knows about it. So we start walking and we hear a voice saying, stop. And it was a forest ranger or park ranger saying, entrance there is forbidden, it's not safe, you can't keep going. So we backed up, Bob gathered us together, said, here's what we're gonna do. He said, I know that the park rangers changed, like the changing of the guard, they relieve. So I'm going to do recognizance. I'm going to go up and I'm going to check when that's happening. Lord only knows how he knew. And then I'm going to come back, and in the gap between one forest ranger and another, we're going to go to the secret falls. So we're waiting. He comes back. He goes, now. And I swear it was like the Marx Brothers or the Keystone Cops, and it was this. I remember it being like a little bit of a precipice, and we're all like our backs against the wall of the cliff and hoping we won't be seen, and we're all like this, going to the secret falls. And we arrived at the secret falls, and it was beautiful. And I remember Bob feeling it seemed that he was so full of love to bring us to this secret special place that, in a way, for me, was the symbol of what Brendan was talking about, the essence. And we spent the rest of the day there. We picnicked. Nobody else was there. Maybe later somebody else snuck across. And I wanted to share that because it really speaks to a kind of magical quality and a determination. And I'll never forget that day. Thank you.
I want to conclude our time together here with a teaching that Bob offered in one of our first email exchanges. It was on the eve of Bob's first major cancer surgery, and it corresponded with the Red Sox winning the 2007 World Series. Bob was, like all good Bostonians, a Red Sox fan, as we've already heard. And he was also in the depths of uncertainty. He wrote, "Anyway, I personally found it very inspiring that the final game's winning pitcher, John Lester, had been undergoing chemotherapy for cancer a year earlier. And the series MVP, Mike Lowell, is also a cancer survivor. I'm sure for them that winning the series, as much as they enjoyed it, was extra compared to what matters most. Let's all remember that about our lives too. It's all extra." For Bob, cancer may have arrived at his door to teach him how to live. But I feel as if Bob arrived in our lives to show us how to be better people. He had a profound ability, as you've heard, to see the good in others. His generosity of spirit manifested as verbal appreciation of the gifts of his peers, the very people sitting here in this room, and support for their aspirations, our aspirations. Trust in our potential and curiosity about our struggles. So Bob, in the end, reminded us by how he lived his life to the fullest that it is all extra. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming. And we are going to, after this meeting together, I think our Zoom people, I just want to say goodbye to you all too. And thank you so much for coming and for celebrating Bob's life with us, good friends, far away. After this, after we conclude and go our own ways, I would like to encourage you right now to think of a memory that you have of Bob, because anyone in this room could have come up to the open mic except for our limited time. But I'd love for you, all of us, to think of one memory that we have of Bob that epitomizes something special for us, a special moment that we had with him. And after we break from this meeting, share it with your neighbor while you're walking down to the woods with us if you'd like, or if you need to go home, maybe just take a few moments to have some refreshments and share a memory. Thank you. Thank you all.